go. So let's see what we got coming first. Okay, so here it is. New discovery just made. Another Spellbound magazine. This is not known to exist until now. So no idea even what's inside this. There's only a few pictures that were online, but this comic is so extremely rare that it says online it does not exist. Take a look at that. It's another Spellbound magazine. I'll take this out. Very large edition also. 100 pages, all in color. What's really strange about this is the back cover is not an ad, it's another cover for what appears to be a whole different Spellbound magazine. That's strange. Yes. It's got a 2 shilling price, 100 pages, all in color. It looks like a nicely painted cover for a comic. And this on the front, 100 pages, 2 shillings, all in color. So that's strange. I've never seen a second cover on the back of a cover. On the back of the comic, sorry, from them, unless it was Buster Comics where the strip started at the back. That one and only comic I know of that's backwards, where the last story goes from the back cover, the inside back cover, to the last page, which was done by Cartoon Arts, which is really strange that they would do that, but I'm not sure why they would put such a nice cover. It's even nicer than the front cover, I think, in my opinion. I don't know why they would have done that. Anyway, so this is Spellbound Magazine. I printed this off online when I got it. The only comic that was known to exist before would be this Spellbound Magazine. You can see this online. This is by Cartoon Arts. Seen this yet? It's Spellbound Magazine, published monthly by Cartoon Art Productions Limited, 17 Oswald Street. This is entirely all black and white horror comics, cover to cover horror comic. It's fantastic. Mine is not the greatest shape. I got some tape at the top, got some tape on the spine. There's a page inside that has some tape. The last 3 pages you can see has a little chunk out of the bottom. You know, I got to upgrade it at some point, but beautiful reading copy. Nice inside, and it's all horror stories, all in black and white. Entire horror comic. They only did a few horror comics, Cartoon Arts. They only did Bat Magazine number 1, 2, 3, and they did Suspense Magazine and Spellbound Magazine. So there's only 5 comics that are full horror. They did the Ghost Riders, but even the Ghost Rider 11 that has a horror cover, there is no horror comics inside that. It's all just Western comics inside that. So it's really not a horror comic, it's a Western comic. But Spellbound Magazine, full horror. This is the only one that was known to exist. This is the only one that's listed online. The only one you can find pictures of anywhere. This one you can't find any information about. So that's really awesome. It's super rare. Look at this. This is Spellbound. Okay. So listed online, when you look up that Spellbound Magazine, the only place you can find it really is the Grand Comic Database. I love using that. It's a great resource for finding information about the comics. It says right there on Spellbound Magazine, on the series listing, it says publishing format, one-shot. It's a one-shot comic. Here, I can put this one up here as well. Then when you go into the issue, it has, in the issue notes, Indicia states published monthly even though this is the sole issue published. So right there online, the only place you can find any mention of Spellbound Magazine, it says that this is the only Spellbound Magazine. It is the sole issue published. Well, not anymore. There's another issue published of Spellbound Magazine. So that's fantastic. New discovery made right there. There are 2 Spellbound magazines. This one, though, is the 100-page one, is not all horror, unfortunately. I love the full horror comics, like this one here, all horror cover to cover. This one is not. It has all kinds of various stories inside. There's only pictures I saw of a few, so a lot of them, I don't know what's inside. I have to review all these stories, and I have to date them all. But anyway, so inside this Spellbound, actually, the one that's known online, it has a 2-page story in it that comes out of the American Ghost Rider number 11. It's got Tortures of the Damned story. It has stories from Nightmare number 12. It's got 5 stories in there. It's all the stories, I believe, are reprinted from Nightmare, are inside this Spellbound magazine. And then because they don't just publish one American comic, because they have larger, it's 68 pages, this one. They publish stories from several. So you have a story from The Monster number 1. It has a story of the Mirror. And it has 3 stories from Ghost Comics number 8. So that's all that's inside Spellbound magazine here. All in black and white, full horror comic, cover to cover. Those are the stories, the American ones, that are reprinted. Now, I know what some of the stories are in here. I've been able to find them online and source them out. But I'm still not sure what all of the stories are quite yet. So, let's take a look at this and see what's even inside this book. Spellbound Magazine. The Visograph. So, the Visograph, that's on the inside back cover. That's what I saw a picture of online. That was actually from a pulp comic. That was from Planet Comics or Planet Stories, but the pulp, not the comic book. The pulp issue that had the Visograph, where other people did like letters to the editor and they wrote in. You can see in here the indicia, Spellbound, published monthly by Magazine Enterprises. So this is okay. Oh no, sorry, that's just address. Okay, so this one is Spellbound Magazine, and it has the exact same cover. This one is just called Spellbound. It is not called Spellbound Magazine. It's just Spellbound. Still like that cover. That's a really nice cover on the back. I don't know why they wouldn't use that on the front. This is probably a redrawn splash page from one of the stories inside. I like that. The crime cover. But anyway. And this one is all in color. So this one's all black and white. We got The Phantom Bus. It's the first story. I'll go through this one here. I'll put it down here. Because I know what some of these stories are. I don't know if that was one of them. The Phantom Bus? Yes, so The Phantom Bus, that is from this horror comic, The Unseen number 6 from September 1952. The Phantom Bus is the first story, and that's what the first story is in here. So this might reprint all of The Unseen. See what the next story is. Ghost Portraits, under an ad. Bayou Vengeance. So yes, that is the next story in The Unseen also. We got Dr. Death. That is definitely in there. I saw that as well. Yep. So this is reprinting all of it seems. The Unseen number 6, September 1952 so far. Death by Darkness. So there's where they get the cover from, right there. They reused this little splash picture from the text story. I don't know why. They wouldn't have used the cover that's on the back. It looks so much nicer. Mirror of Hate. I believe that was the next one. Yes, and then Eerie Glen. And finally, we have the Eerie Glen. So that's cool. We've got a full American horror comic printed there. Next, we have the story here, Battle Orphan. So that is actually, this was also in one of the photos. So this is a story from Real Life Comics number 59, also from September 1952. So all these are from 1952 so far. It was the cover story, Battle Orphan. So here's this first story here. Its history is Louis XI, the Spider King. So I have no idea where this comes from. Race Against Death. Seems to be a Western story. Looks like a cowboy and Indian type story. Son of Sam Houston. Tabletop Railroaders. Beyond the Call of Duty. Our Solar System. Forger's Tracks. Death on the Plains. Then we got a Dog-Faced Dooley. So this might be the whole comic, because there's a picture of another story from Dog-Faced Dooley that I'll show you in a minute when we get to it. Did that pass it already? Oh no, it's still Dog-Faced Dooley. Dog-Faced Dooley in Blondes Prefer Gentlemen. I don't know if that's one of the stories. Might be in this issue number 4. I believe this is Dog-Faced Dooley number 4 being reprinted entirely. I'd have to check the stories to be sure. Dog-Faced Dooley in General Confusion. Wanda and Winnie in The Autograph Hunter. So this is the one that was photoed online. This I have sourced, it's not online, but I found out from somebody who has this issue that this story is in Dog-Faced Dooley number 4. So this probably reprinted all of Dog-Faced Dooley number 4 in here now. Online you can find number 5, and you can see that there's a Wanda and Winnie story number 5, and there is no story of them in number 1, 2, 3. Number 4 does not tell you the contents online. So I had someone check and they found that this is Dog-Faced Dooley number 4. And that's the final story in here. That's the full contents. There you go. Once again, Spellbound. It's not Spellbound Magazine. That's the other one. This one is just called Spellbound. Previously unknown to exist. So that's fantastic. Being able to make a new discovery like that. I love finding these comics that nobody knew about in these modern times. You can't find any information about them. I like doing the research. I like finding out all the information about them and then sharing that and preserving that history online, because all this history is just going to get lost. Nobody ever does anything about it. So I'm going to put it all out there, make sure that everybody knows about this for the future, because nobody really reads books anymore. So somebody has to preserve this for the future. So I have fun doing it. It's a good time. There's Spellbound Magazine. So let's see what else is in this package. Oh, it's 2 in 1. All right. Well, this one first. I know exactly what this is. Classic Comics number 13. This is the first ever full horror comic. Cover to cover, it is entirely horror. It's the first ever published horror comic. This is Classic Comics number 13, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. But this is really, really cool because this is not the American version, the original first printing American version. This is the Canadian published edition, which is extremely rare. So this is literally the first horror comic, first full horror comic published here in Canada, up here in Toronto, Canada. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. That is awesome. I've been looking for one of these for a little while. I see them go by every once in a while. They go kind of expensive though. I found this so cheap. It was literally like $3.50 British pounds, like three pounds. It was a set of 4, 14 pounds for 4. I didn't really want the others. I just wanted this one. A friend of a friend wanted the other ones, so he took those. So I basically got this for free, but that's all it really cost was 3 British pounds. Only bidder, there was a set of 4 of these for 14 British pounds. So it's like $5 Canadian. You can't beat that. That is extremely cheap. This is Canadian history. This is the first Canadian published horror comic. Like, this is fantastic. This is phenomenal. It's like, that's like a mini grail. It's something that I had to have. I searched out everywhere, but I was always looking for it. And as soon as I found one that I get at a good price, I was going to jump on it. So I had to get this one. I just love this Canadian history. First ever Canadian published horror comic, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And you can tell it's not the American. So the American version, here's the American, Class Comics 13. This was August 1943. They published this. You can see on the cover it has 10 cents, 15 cents in Canada. Whereas on the cover of this one, it just says 15 cents in Canada. So that's how you can tell the difference. So the original was August 43. This one was probably 1944. It's always at least a few months later when international editions, foreign editions get published before they get the printed matrices up to it and whatnot. But also from the high reorder number on the back, it's number, I believe it's number 20, it says there. And those ones came out around June to October 1944. So somewhere in there, in the summer of 1944, this came out. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, Canadian published edition. Now, of course, this is entirely horror comic, but it is a classic story. It's Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. They took the story and they illustrated it. So it's just, the whole comic is one story, not multiple, and that's all it is. Whereas it's not a classic anthology style type comic, an anthology horror comic, where anthology style horror comics, the classic comics from back then, were multiple stories. You'd have 4 or 5, depending on the size of the comic, 10 stories. Usually have a text story because they give them cheaper postal rates in the United States. But you have multiple stories, all new material, and that was a classic anthology style. So this would be the first Canadian published anthology style horror comic. Mr. Lucifer Comics, 1946. It's all horror, cover to cover. Everything inside is a horror comic. And unfortunately, we never even got to see these because these were supposed to have covers. They were advertised as having covers, this line of Century Publications, Superior Comics in 1946. They made dozens of comics, and they made them for international markets. They sent them over to the UK, to London, England, to be distributed by Streamline Books. So they had a couple dozen, say, with covers, and then they had 14 that I know of, that I have, that were published, no covers. This first page is now the cover. It was supposed to be Spook Comics. Spook Comics was published US 1945, first anthology-style horror comic published in the States. And then the first horrific horror comic published in the States was Eerie Comics #1 by Avon. That was 2 years later, 1947. That was even after this. That was the year after this. It was 1946. This was only distributed in the United Kingdom. The only place you can find these is in the UK. We here in Canada do not have these. These are not remainders. These are not covers ripped off, remainder comics. These never had covers. They only had UK distribution. But still, this is the first anthology-style horror comic published in Canada. This is the first horror comic published in Canada, period. You can see on the back, Gilberton Company, Canada Limited. And there's the high reorder number is 28. Sorry, so it was even later. It was in 1944, fall of 1944, somewhere around there. So that's really neat, being able to have this Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, Canadian published edition. That's just awesome. So it says here, Classic Comics number 13, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, published and copyrighted by the Gilberton Company, Canada Limited, 371 Bay Street, Toronto, Canada. There you go. That's awesome. First ever published Canadian horror comic. And now, we got a mystery surprise. I have no idea what this is. It was in the same as that horror comics on the other side of it. I've never seen this. Wow. Oh, that's crazy. This must be super early. Commando Comics. Check that out. Commando Comics. That's really awesome. 8 pages in color for 3D. Captoon featuring the first of the last dance. Commando card. That's really cool. So let me just check on. I got a listing here of Cartoon Arts from the Grand Comic Database. Their listings online. There is no Commando Comics. So here's another book. There's no photo anywhere in the world. There's no listing of this anywhere in the world. This is not known to exist until now. This is the first time probably anybody's ever really seen this book. Commando Comics. That's really awesome. Check that out. Oh man, that's so cool. I wonder if there's an address on here. Published by Cartoon Art Productions, 338 Victoria Road, Glasgow. Because this is from Glasgow, Scotland, from Cartoon Arts. And it was from their 338 address. Let's see if I can find it. So, oh, that's strange too. It says 338. I have address listed as 333? 333 and 337 were used in 1947 and 1950. Maybe this is 3 3s. It's really hard to tell with that stamp, but I swear it looks like an 8. Yeah, it's 3 3s. Okay, so somewhere between 1947 and 1950, somewhere in there, probably earlier, so probably 1947-ish, this thing was published. That is awesome. I love that cover. Look at that. The tanks. Wow, that's really exciting. Look at that. That's really awesome. We got Professor Atom on the back. So he's in his Super Duper comics. They have his strips in there. I got a few of those. Let's take a look inside this. Okay. Well, that's nice. Look at that. Commando car. Wow, that's awesome. This used to have it had a staple. It has no staple, so the staple has been removed from it. It had a staple at one point. This next couple pages. So it's a Commando car story. The next couple pages. Here's the back cover. I gotta see this. Oh, that's awesome. Starlight Rand. So it's cool. Here, I'll read this last page. This is just really awesome. I've never seen this before. This has to do with like the Super Duper comics and that. News for Power Man fans. Here's something I want you all to try, kids. You know, I get pushed around a lot by this artist fellow, so I've thought around things and decided, why not give you boys and girls a chance to sling me into an adventure or two? So if there's anything you'd like to see me do, any adventure you'd like to see me in, any place you'd like me to visit, just write a letter to me. Address it this way: Powerman CEO, Cartoon Art Productions, Cockburn Buildings, office number 16, 141 Bath Street, Glasgow, and I'll do my level best to follow your very own wishes. And here's something especially for the girls who read Powerman's adventures. I'm sure you've met me, Starlight Rand. I often help Powerman in his crime-smashing exploits. Here's what I want you to do. How would you like to see me wearing some of the dresses you have designed? If I consider any of your designs original or pretty enough, I'll wear them in the next Powerman adventure. Just take a sheet of clean white paper and draw your own dress or costume, designed in pencil or ink like this, and send them to Starlight Rand, care of Cartoon Art Productions, Cockburn Buildings, office number 16, 141 Bath Street, Glasgow, C2. Note, if you want your drawings returned, you must enclose a stamped, addressed envelope. And it shows front, back. So, don't let us down, boys and girls. Those who have their wishes granted will be mentioned at the beginning of our next adventure. Or will it be your adventure? Dennis M. Reeder. That's awesome. I love this American style drawing Dennis Malcolm Reeder did. He did, like, of course, Electro Girl, Phantom Maid, you know, Power Man, all those types of comics that were in, like, Super Duper and that. Fantastic. I love having that ad in the back that they're asking for people to write in. That's like my favorite part of this comic. Those little things there, those are just fantastic. That original British art, this whole book, this whole thing, this is awesome. I'm so excited to see this. Wow. I had no idea what this was. This was a complete surprise to me. This is fantastic. I love this book. That's just awesome. Extremely rare stuff. I can't believe that. That's awesome. Wow. Anyway, so till next time, I will have another mail call coming with some more pickups from actually the same seller of that Spellbound magazine. Ariel over there in the UK, fantastic person that I've been dealing with. She was auctioning off a deceased relative's collection, little small collection, they had great taste in reading material. I love all the stuff that they had, all the old the 50s horror comics, and then also anything by cartoon art, and there's a bunch of both. So I got another little bit. I got 4 more books that are on the way. They're just going to be shipped out shortly, and that'll be my next video. We'll be opening those up and reviewing those. So till next time, cheers.